What happens when Hollywood spends so much money that even hundreds of millions at the box office cannot save a movie? These films carried enormous production costs, marketing campaigns, reshoots, delays, and break-even expectations that sometimes pushed their total financial exposure toward $500 million. Some looked unstoppable before release. Before we start, like this video, share it with another movie fan, and subscribe to the channel. Number 22. Jupiter Ascending, 2015. Long before audiences understood what was happening, Warner Brothers had already spent a fortune building an entirely new science fiction universe. The Wachowskis created Jupiter Ascending as a giant space opera filled with alien royalty, enormous spaceships, strange creatures, futuristic cities, and complicated family politics. At the center is Jupiter Jones, played by Mila Kunis, an ordinary cleaner who discovers that her genetic identity makes her incredibly valuable to a powerful intergalactic dynasty. Channing Tatum appears as Kane Wise, a genetically engineered warrior sent to protect her from forces trying to control her inheritance. One of the film's most memorable sequences sends Kane flying over Chicago using gravity-defying boots, while alien attackers chase Jupiter through the city. Buildings are damaged, vehicles are destroyed, and the scene clearly shows where a large part of the production budget went. The problem was that audiences never embraced the mythology. With a production budget reported around $176 to $179 million before worldwide advertising, the movie opened weakly in North America and finished with roughly $184 million globally. Number 21. The BFG, 2016. Putting Steven Spielberg, Disney, and Roald Dahl together sounded almost impossible to fail. Yet the BFG became proof that even legendary names cannot guarantee blockbuster ticket sales. The story follows Sophie, a young girl living in an orphanage who unexpectedly sees a giant outside her window. She is taken to Giant Country, where she discovers that her captor is actually the Big Friendly Giant, a gentle creature who collects dreams while avoiding the dangerous giants around him. Visually, the movie is filled with expensive fantasy imagery. One memorable sequence takes Sophie into the world where dreams are collected, with glowing colors floating through the darkness, while the giant carefully captures them. Spielberg turns the scene into something magical and strangely peaceful. Unfortunately, the magic did not reach enough ticket buyers. The production budget was around $140 million, while global marketing pushed the financial commitment much higher. The movie earned roughly $195 million worldwide, but only a fraction of box office revenue returned directly to the studio. Industry estimates suggested Disney could lose somewhere around $90 million or more. If you enjoy these forgotten box office disasters, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And share this video with someone who thinks a huge Hollywood budget always guarantees success. Number 20. King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, 2017. Someone at Warner Brothers clearly expected King Arthur to become the center of a huge modern franchise. Guy Ritchie was given an enormous budget, Charlie Hunnam was chosen as the hero, and the ancient legend was rebuilt like a medieval superhero movie. This version follows Arthur after he grows up on the streets without knowing his true identity. His life changes when he pulls Excalibur from the stone and discovers that his uncle Vortigern stole the throne that belonged to Arthur's father. Rather than traditional sword fights, the movie often turns Excalibur into something close to a superpower. During its biggest battle sequences, Arthur moves with incredible speed while enemies are thrown through the air and the camera races around him. The production reportedly cost around $175 million before advertising. That meant the movie needed an enormous worldwide performance simply to justify the investment. Instead, it opened to only about $15 million in North America and finished with approximately $148 million globally. That was not enough for a film that had reportedly been imagined as the beginning of a much larger Arthurian universe. The studio had plans for multiple adventures, but when the first movie earned less worldwide than its reported production budget, those plans effectively disappeared. Arthur pulled the sword from the stone, but he could not pull the franchise out of financial trouble. Number 19. Tomorrowland, 2015. Original Hollywood blockbusters were already becoming rare when Disney decided to gamble heavily on Tomorrowland. Instead of superheroes or an established film franchise, the studio spent close to $200 million building a completely new futuristic adventure. Britt Robertson plays Casey Newton, an intelligent teenager who discovers a mysterious pin. The moment she touches it, she appears to be transported into a beautiful futuristic world, filled with incredible technology. Her search eventually leads her to Frank Walker, played by George Clooney, a former inventor who once believed Tomorrowland represented humanity's brightest future. One of the most memorable scenes shows the futuristic city in its full glory. People move through the air using advanced machines, rockets launch from platforms, and enormous buildings stretch toward the sky. Disney clearly hoped audiences would fall in love with the world instantly. Instead, the film struggled to explain exactly what it was selling. The production budget reached roughly $180 to $190 million, while production and global marketing together reportedly pushed Disney's spending close to $280 million. Worldwide box office reached only about $209 million. Once theaters kept their share and other expenses were included, estimates suggested losses well above $100 million. A movie built around optimism about the future became a warning about how dangerous expensive original blockbusters could be. Number 18. Jungle Cruise, 2021. After Pirates of the Caribbean transformed a theme park attraction into a billion-dollar film franchise, Disney understandably wondered whether another ride could create the same magic. That thinking eventually produced Jungle Cruise, starring Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt. Blunt plays Lily Houghton, a scientist searching for a legendary tree believed to possess extraordinary healing abilities. She hires Frank Wolf, a riverboat captain played by Johnson, to take her deep into the Amazon. Their journey includes supernatural enemies, rival explorers, dangerous wildlife, collapsing environments, and enormous amounts of digital spectacle. The movie also tries to capture the humor of Disney's original theme park ride, particularly through Frank's deliberately terrible jokes. One of the biggest action sequences sends the boat racing through dangerous waters, while explosions and enemies close in from every direction. The financial problem was enormous. Production costs reportedly approached $200 million, while global promotion pushed the total expenditure much higher. Some industry calculations estimated the entire production and marketing commitment at more than $350 million. That meant traditional theatrical revenue probably needed to approach $500 million before the project looked comfortably profitable. Instead, Jungle Cruise earned roughly $221 million worldwide in theaters. The simultaneous Disney Plus release and pandemic conditions complicated the final financial picture. But theatrically, this expensive adventure never came close to becoming the next Pirates of the Caribbean. Number 17. Lightyear, 2022. Disney believed the Toy Story brand was strong enough to launch a completely different kind of Buzz Lightyear movie. Audiences seemed less convinced. Instead of following the plastic toy from the original films, Lightyear presents the fictional space hero who supposedly inspired that toy. Chris Evans replaces Tim Allen as the voice of Buzz, immediately signaling that this would not be the character audiences remembered. Buzz becomes stranded on a hostile planet and repeatedly attempts dangerous test flights to find a way home. The problem is that each near-light-speed journey costs him only minutes while years pass for everyone else. That creates the movie's most emotional sequence. Buzz returns from one mission expecting to continue where he left off, only to discover that his friends have aged while he has barely changed. It is an ambitious science fiction idea, but Pixar's complicated explanation of what the movie actually was may have weakened excitement before release. The production reportedly cost around $200 million, with a major worldwide advertising campaign added on top. The film opened to only about $51 million domestically, far below normal expectations for Pixar and Toy Story. Worldwide earnings stopped around $226 million. Industry calculations later estimated a loss exceeding $100 million. Buzz once promised audiences infinity and beyond. This time, the box office struggled to leave the launchpad. Number 16. Strange World, 2022. Disney spent years teaching audiences that its animated movies were major theatrical events. Then Strange World arrived and seemed to disappear almost instantly. The story follows the Clade family, famous explorers living in a fantasy world powered by a mysterious plant called Pando. When the energy source begins failing, 3 generations of the family enter a bizarre underground environment to discover what is happening. What follows is filled with colorful creatures, living landscapes, strange organisms, and enormous environments that feel completely unlike the surface world. The movie's most important visual reveal comes when the family realizes the strange landscape is not simply a hidden underground ecosystem. The world around them is part of something much larger and more alive than they imagined. Despite the ambitious animation, audiences showed little urgency to see it in cinemas. The Thanksgiving opening was extremely weak for a Disney animated feature. Production expenses were reported between roughly $135 million and $180 million, with global promotion increasing the financial risk considerably. The movie eventually earned only about $74 million worldwide. That meant Disney had a major animated release, earning less globally than many successful films earned during their opening weekend. Industry estimates placed the studio's possible loss around $150 million or more. The movie was literally about discovering a hidden world. Unfortunately, it felt as though Disney had accidentally hidden the movie from audiences as well. Number 15. Terminator. Dark Fate, 2019. Everything about this project was designed to tell fans that the real Terminator franchise had finally returned. Linda Hamilton came back as Sarah Connor. Arnold Schwarzenegger returned as the famous Machine. James Cameron was involved with the story and production, and the movie ignored several previous sequels in order to follow Terminator 2 more directly. The new story introduces Dani Ramos, a young woman targeted by a highly advanced machine called the Rev 9. Mackenzie Davis plays Grace, an enhanced soldier sent from the future to protect her. One of the film's strongest sequences happens during the early highway attack. The Rev 9 can separate into two dangerous forms, allowing it to pursue the heroes while vehicles crash around them, and Sarah Connor suddenly enters the fight. It looked like the return of classic Terminator action. The box office told another story. Production reportedly cost between $185 million and $196 million before marketing. The movie opened to less than $30 million domestically and finished with around $261 million worldwide. For an expensive franchise revival expected to launch more sequels, that total was nowhere near enough. Industry estimates suggested losses could exceed $120 million. The filmmakers had planned a new trilogy, but after Dark Fate struggled immediately, those plans effectively terminated themselves. Number 14. Dark Phoenix, 2019. By 2019, the X-Men franchise had been running for nearly 2 decades, and Dark Phoenix was supposed to deliver one of its most important stories. Instead, it became the film that closed the original era with a financial thud. Sophie Turner's Jean Grey absorbs a mysterious cosmic force during a rescue mission in space. Her powers grow stronger, but so do her emotional problems, forcing the X-Men to decide whether they can help Jean or must stop her. The story revisits material previously attempted in X-Men, The Last Stand, which already made some viewers question why the franchise was returning to the same storyline. Its best action comes during the final train sequence. Magneto, Cyclops, Nightcrawler, and the others fight attackers moving through the carriages, while Jean slowly realizes the true scale of her abilities. The production cost was reported around $200 million after reshoots and delays. Opening weekend reached only about $33 million domestically, and the worldwide total stopped around $252 million. For a superhero movie that expensive, the numbers were disastrous. Industry analysis estimated that Disney and Fox could face losses above $100 million, with some calculations going considerably higher. Jean Grey becomes almost unbelievably powerful in the story, yet not even the Phoenix Force could save a franchise whose audience enthusiasm had already begun fading. Number 13. Solo, a Star Wars story, 2018. There was a time when the idea of a modern Star Wars movie losing money sounded almost impossible. Then Solo arrived. The film explores the early years of Han Solo, with Alden Ehrenreich stepping into the role made famous by Harrison Ford. Viewers see how Han meets Chewbacca, becomes involved in criminal operations, encounters Lando Calrissian, and eventually gains control of the Millennium Falcon. Donald Glover's introduction as Lando became one of the most popular elements, but the biggest action sequence is the Kessel Run. Han pilots the Falcon through a collapsing and dangerous route while trying to escape enemies and complete the legendary journey fans had heard about for decades. Behind the scenes, however, the production had become extremely difficult. Original directors Phil Lord and Christopher Miller left after months of filming, and Ron Howard was brought in to complete substantial additional work. That pushed costs upward. The final production budget was widely estimated well above $250 million once reshoots were considered. The movie earned about $393 million worldwide. For most movies, that sounds enormous. For a Star Wars release carrying that level of spending, it was a major disappointment. Industry estimates suggested the movie lost tens of millions of dollars. Han Solo had survived the Empire, bounty hunters, and Jabba the Hutt. He could not survive an over-budget production. Number 12. Justice League, 2017. Warner Brothers wanted the DC superheroes to create their own version of the Avengers. Instead, Justice League became a warning about what happens when a cinematic universe is pushed forward too quickly. Following Superman's disappearance, Batman and Wonder Woman begin recruiting other heroes. Aquaman, Flash, and Cyborg eventually join them, as Steppenwolf attempts to unite the powerful mother boxes and reshape Earth. The most memorable scene arrives after Superman is brought back. Confused and angry, he fights the entire team. During the battle, Flash starts moving at superhuman speed, only to realize Superman's eyes are tracking him. That tiny moment immediately shows how powerful Superman really is. Behind the scenes, however, the movie was dealing with enormous complications. Zack Snyder left the production. Joss Whedon supervised extensive additional photography, and expensive reshoots changed large portions of the finished film. The production budget climbed toward $300 million before global promotion. Worldwide box office reached roughly $658 million. That sounds like a blockbuster until the costs are considered. Once theaters took their share, and marketing was included, the movie reportedly failed to generate the kind of profit Warner Bros. Expected from its biggest superhero team. The studio had created a movie capable of earning more than $500 million, and still being called a disappointment. That is how dangerous giant budgets can become. Number 11. The Lone Ranger, 2013. Disney looked at Johnny Depp, director Gore Verbinski, and producer Jerry Bruckheimer, and saw the creative team behind Pirates of the Caribbean. The studio apparently hoped the same combination could transform an old Western hero into another worldwide franchise. Armie Hammer plays John Reed, a lawman who becomes the masked Lone Ranger after his group is attacked. Johnny Depp's Tonto joins him as they uncover a conspiracy involving powerful businessmen, railroads, and corruption. The movie contains enormous Western sets, action scenes, trains, horses, explosions, and visual effects. Its biggest sequence comes during the finale, when two trains race through a spectacular chase while the William Tell Overture plays. Characters leap between moving locomotives, horses race alongside the tracks, bridges collapse, and Verbinski directs the sequence like a giant live-action cartoon. It is easy to see why the movie became so expensive. Production costs reportedly exceeded $200 million and may have approached $250 million after delays. Marketing added another huge amount. The film earned around $260 million worldwide. That was nowhere near enough. Disney eventually warned investors that the project could create a loss somewhere between $160 million and $190 million. The studio wanted another Captain Jack Sparrow. Number 10. John Carter, 2012. Few modern box office failures became legendary as quickly as John Carter. Disney spent enormous money adapting Edgar Rice Burroughs' century-old science fiction hero, apparently believing the film could launch a major new adventure franchise. Taylor Kitsch plays John Carter, a former Civil War soldier mysteriously transported to Mars, known by its inhabitants as Barsoom. Because of the planet's weaker gravity, Carter can jump enormous distances and possesses remarkable strength. He becomes involved in a conflict between rival civilizations and meets Deja Thoris, a princess fighting to protect her people. The arena battle shows exactly what Disney believed audiences would love. Carter is forced to fight enormous creatures while using his enhanced abilities to leap through the air and defeat enemies far larger than himself. The spectacle looked expensive because it was. The production budget reportedly reached around $250 million, while marketing pushed Disney's total commitment toward $350 million. The movie opened weakly in North America and ultimately earned approximately $284 million worldwide. That was not enough to cover the huge costs. Disney later announced a write-down of roughly $200 million connected with the film. The failure became so famous that John Carter almost stopped being discussed as a movie and started being discussed as a financial event.